Before we get into the video, I just want to say what a brilliant day yesterday was. Not just the result in terms of obviously West Ham, but also our pre-match event. Dave and X, put in so much hard work for those, and it was just excellent. We had Anton Ferdinand there, Marlon Harewood. It was excellent, and there was just some great faces around. Great to chat to people. Sam Delaney was there as well. It was a really good day, and great to chat to fans and everything about obviously West Ham and stuff. So it was just one of them days that was. Yeah, really special actually, despite the weather and despite really the game as such, because it wasn't an easy watch, was it, at times? Very, very tough actually. But my word, it was one of those, I think hopefully so, it's going to be a turning point. You look when you look back at that match, I think it took a lot of character actually of West Ham, and I'm really, that's the bit that really pleased me. It wasn't overall the performance. I don't want people to sort of think I'm really praising up the performance, going, what a great display it was. It wasn't the best display. Annoyingly, it was one of them that you look back and think, why didn't we just go for it in the first half? It just felt like we just sat back off a little bit after going 1-0 up, and that's where the frustration is, and I totally agree with that. But obviously they levelled it before half time, and I think a lot of us just felt like, oh no, here we go, second half's going to be a nightmare. But I've got to say, I think West Ham's character in the second half was really impressive and really great to see it, actually. I thought the players really dug in. And despite even going behind, let's be honest, it was against the run of play. It was a little bit end-to-end, but I thought West Ham were the better side, looking more likely to score. I was really impressed with how we started the half, actually. And then, obviously, they go and nick a goal. And you think, oh, no. And bearing in mind, we're coming off the back of 3 Premier League defeats, the last one at Brentford being a game that we were in front and then ended up losing. You might have forgiven the players really for thinking, oh, here we go again. We've just put in a good shift here. We're working hard, and now we're behind. I actually thought we responded really well. We looked like the only team that were going to go and win it. Do you know what I mean? I was watching it thinking West Ham are going to win this game, and when we were even at 2, obviously we equalised straight after they went ahead, which is what we needed, which is fantastic. And I think that obviously did help the fact we responded so fast. But we looked the far more hungry side. Those players really wanted those 3 points and worked very hard for it. And I've got to say, hats off to them. It was fully deserved and a huge sigh of relief. It's nice to see us back in the top half, and just not, especially on the international break, it would have been horrible to have lost that game. Going into a 2-week break, it would have just been awful. It would have been such a negative period of time. But now it feels a little bit more positive. You can look forward a little bit more and think, do you know what? If we can go and get 3 points at Burnley and then do the same against Palace at home, these are 2 winnable games for West Ham and big games. Because if we can get 6 points out of the game, suddenly we could be sitting, say, 7th in the league and feeling far more confident about things and start looking up again. So yeah, great day all round. And as I say, the pre-match event was brilliant as well. So yeah, excellent. But this is not what we're here to talk about. We're talk about Will Steele. So for people who haven't seen it, what should I tell you what? Let's talk about Will Steele first. Let's talk about him. So he's a young manager that's managing out in France. Reims, he's their manager at the moment, and he's been there for I think a couple of years now. He's been an assistant manager, working his way around the leagues to get where he is. And done very, very well actually for someone at his age. He's only 31 years old. It's a name we talked about before on this channel about a year ago. Someone's been heavily linked with a West Ham job. I mean, the reason he's been heavily linked with West Ham job is, one, he's impressing, and considering the fact of where he's come from in his career, he's doing very, very well. His style of football, he brings young players through, so he ticks a lot of boxes. But the big one being, of course, he's a West Ham fan, a massive West Ham fan. He doesn't hide that at all. We're going to talk about that in a second. But the interesting thing was he was at the game yesterday. Now, look, as far as we understand it, he could be there for doing media work, so it's not as if it's a huge groundbreaking thing. But the interesting thing I did find is that he put on Instagram the image of him at the London Stadium. Now, look, he's more than entitled to do that, of course. Why not? Why is he not allowed to do that? He's just showing where he was. But he knows. He's very aware of the fact he's been heavily linked with West Ham before. He knows that. And I think that the fact that a lot of the fan base are quite interested in him. Of course, we've got the situation with David Moyes, where it looks as though it's his last season at the club. It would take a lot, I think, now for him to be retained. I think he'd have to do incredibly well this season. And when we talk incredibly well, I mean, he's going to probably another trophy or whatever. He's going to need to do very, very well, I think, to keep his job. As far as we understand David Moyes' situation at the moment with the club is that, yes, they've been a bit frustrated, and yes, they've drawn up a contingency plan, all this kind of stuff. But they will make an assessment at the end of the season. That's kind of typically how they want to do things. And I don't think David Moyes has got a problem with that either. I think he's quite happy to see what his options are at the end of the season. So I think for all parties, that's where we are at. And I don't think there's any more to it than that. It's always been the kind of same at West Ham, isn't it? They like to keep their managers and then they'll make an assessment at a certain point. But it's widely expected, though, that David Moyes is likely to go at the end of the season. That it just feels that way, doesn't it? You're getting the impression that's where this is going. And of course, Will Steele is one of the names that sort of gets mentioned a fair bit. And he has now gone online and he has made put the picture up there. He was at London Stadium. And I just think it's very interesting, actually, why he's done that. And what's really more interesting as well, not only he's done that, is the fact that he is someone that you'd imagine would work very, very well under the Steidten regime. You know, he's a young manager. He's happy to work under director of football, having players get brought in for him to work with, young players. He likes to bring young players through. And he plays a very attractive style of football. He's done very, very well where he is in France. And it's just a lot of boxes ticked. And the fact he's a big West Ham fan, I think, would just endear him to the fans straight away. And also, you get that loyalty, don't you? You know, if he comes to the club, you get the feeling that he would be someone, not only would he want the job, he wouldn't want to give it up. He wouldn't be coming here thinking one eye on another. Well, I'll be here for a year or two, then I'm going to jump over to Man United. I'm going to jump Liverpool. You know what I mean? He's not going to be doing that. He'd be thinking, no, I'm at West Ham. This is the pinnacle. This is where I want to be. I'm a West Ham fan. So I think he actually ticks a lot of boxes. Interesting thing as well, we got a quote from Will Steele, which was a little while ago he said this, but it really does show his aspirations as a manager, which I think are fundamentally important in this video, but also his love for the club, West Ham. So this is what he said. He said, in the short term, I want to stay the full season out with Rem. Okay, so he said, I don't want to be moving mid-season. We talked about this as well previously. Ex-WHU employee said that the club won't want to appoint mid-season, find it very difficult to do so. Managers don't tend to want to move mid-season. Summer's the time to go. So this fits in with that. And he wants to do as well as he can for Rem. He wants to, I want to finish as high in the league as I possibly can. For the rest of the problem, he said, I've never had a real career plan, to be honest. I just take what comes my way. He said, but I have to admit, there's a little child in me that wants to go back to England. It's my home. It's my championship. It's the best in the world. I've always been a supporter of West Ham. And then he was asked about what about the West Ham job. He said, I would have to think about it twice, but would I be able to? I would feel too guilty in the event of defeat. But in the Premier League and in Europe, there were clearly two major objectives in my career. So he clearly would be very tempted to come to West Ham. Of course he would be. I mean, let's be honest, no disrespect to Rem at all, but I mean, he's doing very well there and they're in the top division in France. But the Premier League is where it's at, not just for the financial impact it have on him personally, but the fact is it's the big most watched league in the world. It's a huge, huge league. It's the best. You're literally going to be rubbing shoulders with the very best, and I think who wouldn't want to do that? Who wouldn't want to take that? He comes across like someone that's, been very, very successful at a young age, but he's hungry. He's hungry to do well. He's not shied away as well from moving around. He started at Preston, under 14 manager. Then he's moved around. He's moved around a few times to get where he is. So he's not someone that's just stuck in one club and going, well, I'm not. And he's, had a fluky one season. This is a guy that's moved around and worked very hard and been very successful where he's been. When he's been assistant managers, they've always done very well. And he's then been sort of touted as being, well, that's the real reason that we did well because of him. And that's kind of showing where he is at Rem. I mean, Rem were paying 25 grand a match for him to be their manager because he didn't have the UEFA licenses to be able to, to fall in line with the guidelines of a manager. So while he was being trained, they were paying 25 grand a match for him to be their manager. That just shows how highly regarded he is by that club. I think it's very interesting. It's definitely one that I think West Ham fans need to keep an eye on because it's one I've always kind of been attracted to. I love his story. I love the way he plays. And I really think that once David Moyes does depart the club, I would like to see West Ham go down a more younger route. And also, it has to be a manager that works in line with Tim Steidten, and Will still just ticks those boxes. He really does. This is a really interesting period for West Ham. And obviously, the moment the focus is this season, and the focus is I can't see David Moyes losing his job unless West Ham absolutely have a disastrous run of form. Then I think he'll be in danger, as it kind of was at this period. You know, if we had lost to Nottingham Forest, then gone lost to Burnley, I think you'd be looking at thinking, well, we've probably got to change this up here. But and possibly a couple more games after that. But I think that for the short term, it looks like David Moyes is going to be our manager. Whether it'll be the case at the end of the season, look, it could well be. If he does really, really well, then he may well be kept on. But I don't think it just doesn't look likely, does it? I think the writing on the wall is that the club are probably going to see this out and going to go in a different direction, which I think would suit all parties. And I think that the fans would be more than happy with that. We need to see bit of freshness at West Ham, I think. I really do. As much as David Moyes has been a great manager overall for us, you know, possibly, you know, I'm not saying in playing style, but what he's delivered has been pretty special in terms of, especially on the European front. But Will Steele. That, I mean, that is a name that's going to keep being bandied around, and him going to that game yesterday. Not that that's the biggest news of it, but to put out on social media, he knows West Ham fans are watching this. He knows it, so. I think it's a case of seriously watch this space.